Hello, man. Hello, Mgtows. Let's see if we can get started here on the right note. Go your own way. Go your own way.
Hello, man.
There is my sound check.
Hello. Let's see if we can get started here.
There we go. We're all started up and ready. It's been really free of problems lately when it's on startup, and that's good. I think we went through that last year or sometime, or the beginning of this year, where startup was such a problem, and it was like, oh, what are they doing? What are they doing? It's craziness. And but lately it's been starting up very well. Hello, Riff. Hello, Joe. Hello, Whiskey. I just listened to your podcast. Great podcast, Whiskey. Whiskey's so good for Mgtow and all the guys that were in. Hello, Magic Mark. Hello, Prune Juice. Hello, Savage again. And hello, everybody that's in. If I don't get your name right now, I'm sorry. And we'll do it. By the end of the day, we'll get it ready. Today, we're going to talk about an interesting subject. It kind of spits off of my last video where we were talking about a certain amount of things. And then I thought, well, that's what we get accused of, hegemonic masculinity. And hegemonic masculinity is like, you have to know the definition first of hegemonic masculinity. And it comes from the Greek. It comes from a hegemony, and hegemony comes from capable of commanding, hegemony. And but in the modern dictionary, it doesn't really mean that. And then we'll get to hegemonic, because the ick means something else. It takes it from here to here to here. So I kind of wanted to show. I kind of wanted to show, because I keep a 1923 pocket veto around, and I keep it for just this purpose, for when feminism changes words or groups change words and they become more the neologistic words rather than the actual logistics of the word. Neologistic is new logistics. So let me put up what actually hegemony means, actually from the Latin, and it does come from the Latin, and I'll share it with you if I can get my screen back up. My screen, it pops down every time I do something, so I have to put it back up, and that's my fault. I don't know how I can change that, but I know there's a setting I can use. Yeah, lots of words are now missing. Words are different. I like to keep the 1923 pocket veto, and if you guys ever run into one of these are actually beautiful books, and they come full with diagrams and pictures, and they got some rather stunning art in them sometimes, and they got almost a picture of everything: butterflies, fish. It's just a really cool little thing to have around if you're going back in time. If you want to go back in the Wayback Machine and you want to see where people change languages and stuff. I'm sort of into linguistics, so I want to see where people change languages and stuff. And that's important to me, how people use language in the wrong way. And we do know that modern sociology, which is attached to modern feminism, changes words in that way. So today we're talking about hegemonic masculinity. So we want to know what that means. Because I always, they throw that at me sometimes, and I'm like, oh, that's such an uncommon word, and to use an uncommon word it just causes stress for a person. So let me screen share and show you what the actual, we're going to get infinity screen. Sorry about that, guys. And then I have to go to my page. I put these things down, and I hope let me see if you can see that. Yeah, I think you can see that. And hegemony, hegemonic or hegemony. Hegemony starts from a leader, leadership, or predominant influence exercised by the state over others as a confederation. Now, let me read what it really means. Hegemony means leadership or predominant influence exercised by one state or another over as a confederation. Now, hegemonic, and we know ick is a suffix. That right there, ick is a suffix. So it changes the meaning of the word. And hegemonic is not the same as hegemony. It means or like. So when you use hegemonic, it would be like, what they're saying is like a predominant influences that exercises the state, one state over another, or like that. And then you start thinking, wow, wow, let me pull this down and get back to my page. And I think the ick in this is the ick starts to mean a whole lot when you start let me stop the screen share and put my pretty face back up. I know you guys appreciate that, my prettiness instead of looking at screenshots and stuff. And I know I say that because I laugh, because I am far from pretty. I know that. I know that's just a joke. So hegemonic is one state's predominant influence over another state, according to the book I revere the most as probably the best, The Pocket Veto from 1923, in the Latin. It gives you all the Latin. And hegemonic, we all know what masculinity is. So ick meaning like that. So right off the back, we got this really ambiguous term. Now, if you go to the definition of like Raewyn Connell's concept of hegemonic masculinity, Connell in 1986, the analyst of instruments and attitudes and precise among men and perpetual gender inequality involving both men and the dominance over women and other, right away we start veering from that idea of the original statement, hegemonic. Because it has to do with the state. And we all know when it comes to influences with the state, who has the power. What we're talking about is a power relationship, and who has the power when it comes to one who influences the state more. That would be feminism. That would be women. That would be the divorce courts. That would be gynocentrism and the position one takes in gynocentrism, to err on the side of the female. So now we're starting to get a broader idea of how crazy this is. The concept of hegemonic masculinity has been used in gender studies only since 1980. So that's that change. To do this thing that they talk about, stress where they kind of describe it as stressing the legitimate power of consent, the health behaviors between men and violence, and the proclivity of and what I like to look at on this is what they're talking about. We all kind of know slightly, although it's so it's used in an ambiguous term, sort of like this is like the state's power over, but we all know that females carry a weight. That's what we call the gun in the room with the state. So hegemonic masculinity in itself doesn't kind of exist. It's kind of this thing that's in the mind of a female. So we'll go from there. Females, I look at a male and they see a sexually dimorphic larger creature. And then we start going into dimorphism, sexual dimorphism, the larger creature and all that. We know we're bigger. We know we're stronger. We know that. And we got to keep that in mind when we look at hegemonic masculinity. And then my subject, hegemonic masculinity and effemininity. How would you equalize the two things if you wanted? Because you can't make men smaller. Well, can you? Yes, if you effeminate the men, and if you start to effeminate, you start adding estrogen to the water, say. Oh, now we start looking at this thing, and I don't think that's any kind of conspiracy theory. I hate conspiracy theories. I don't believe in chemtrails. I don't believe in anything. I don't believe in 30 years we're going to have this. I'm not a prognosticator of what's going to happen in 30 years. There's going to be a zombie apocalypse or everything. No, I don't believe in all that. See, I like what's in front of me. I'm very logistical. I'm very fact and logic oriented when I do these things. I like to look at the words. I look at the meanings. There's no broader meaning to this thing than this thing was kind of created in a broader context to bring about sociological change in what they would call hegemonic masculinity. So it's a reaction to, it's a complaint is what it is. Anytime you hear a feminist saying hegemonic masculinity, we're talking about a complaint onto the issue that we are dimorphically larger. And then now we're getting down to the brass tacks of this thing, aren't we? The complaint that men are larger, the complaint that force can be wielded at any time, and force can be, so the state gets involved. When we talk about hegemony, we're talking about the state's influence over another state, sort of like the Civil War, the North and the South. The North wanted to have their way, and the South wanted to have their way. And then there was influential states within that, say Massachusetts, Maine, Rhode Island, all those, Providence, and all those places where the original 13 states and all that had a little more power over the places like West Virginia or Virginia, or even hence the middle states in Ohio and the Midwest states at that time. So they kind of wielded a slight power from experience. And we like to talk about pragmaticism in here. So they've experienced these things. They got experience running these things. Men do the same thing. We have an experience running things. We have an experience making the government work and all this. When we look at it, if hegemonic masculinity was real, there would be no Nancy Pelosi. There would be no female. If it was just so simple to show up and go, and go, go rug, and everybody would run, and you go, oh, now I'm the leader. No, that doesn't happen in our society. So from the exception of the word and the term and the phrase and how they use it constantly against males, and we have to sometimes it's important that we start untangling the terms that they use, and you have to read about them and everything. And I sit and giggle when I read about it, I do, and it's like, they really think that, they really do, they really do. So how does the concept of hegemonic masculinity how is it you practically use in the groundworks of it when they try to change? Well, what it is a complaint to try to change men's behavior with the goal of building gender equality. Oh, well, that sounds a lot like marriage. You get married, you're the alpha male, and you get married and you're the alpha male, and she's picked this guy that's the protector and provider, especially the protector at that point when they're choosing. You got a protector, which will entail sexual dimorphism, height, looks, muscle tone, all that stuff is taken, blah, 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 sexual diversity is taken into account. They look at your face and make sure you're not retarded, stuff like that. And then they pick a guy that is masculine and probably a little more the bad boy, and that's what they look for. But and they're looking to change the behavior of that man. So they're looking to effeminate on how they do that. Well, with estrogen, we all know that married men and men that date, what they were becomes less, and that's where the effemination comes in. But they do this with social context, with masculinity too. And we don't understand, some of the guys don't understand the social context of trying to change the man from the masculine to the middle effeminate, sort of halfway, is very natural in life, because we can look at the way things happen in relationships and everything. We all had men that come around, first they come around, we're drinking beer, everything, and you got your buddies, and everybody's working out and everybody's great looking, and we all got our ripped chests and our six packs when we were young and everything. And one of the guy wanders off with a woman. He wanders back about 6 months later, and you look at him, you go, he ain't working out, he's talking a little funny, he's not talking like a man. I can see him, but I hear a woman now, and that's the estrogen. He's starting to take all that estrogen in his body from being around a woman, because a woman is an estrogen machine. And this is where I start questioning like the state's influence on this with say regulations. Okay, we all know if you take a testosterone product and you can look on the side of testosterone products and you rub that on your hand, you rub it on your hair, and you use these and you rub it usually generally underneath your the biggest warning to those testosterone products is they're going to get on a doorknob. They're going to get on and if you have a family or if you have a girlfriend, she's going to start intaking that testosterone too. So there's a huge warning on her. And we've seen we've seen that in that instance that men have been sued for this. Women will grow a mustache. She'll get a little hair on her chest. And she's like, what's going on here? Well, he's taking testosterone in a liquid form and he's rubbing it on himself. But when it comes to estrogen products, that we know estrogen products are in our water. They're in our plastics. They're in our water. They're in makeup. They're in when you rub against a woman's face, the estrogen products are actually in the makeup. They're in her sprays. They're in herself. And then when you have the receptacle of the biggest organ in the body is what, guys? It's the skin. Your skin is your biggest organ. And then when you rub up against a female, you're having sex. Them things are great and everything and all that, blah, 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 for you guys if you're doing that. What you're really doing is you're taking in large amounts of estrogen. And the state doesn't have a problem with this. They don't have a problem with the male estrogen intake where we're becoming effeminated. Now we start looking at the concept of hegemony, one state over the other, or something ick, I see the edge hegemonic like that. The states, and this, by the way, this thing that I'm reading, I get it from, comes from the NCBI, and I'll give the link. The NCBI is the U.S. National Library of Medicine. This is what. This is the government issue of what they want to, when they use the word hegemonic masculinity, this is what they read. This is what they, our legislators. Now, when we think about the hegemony, one state over the another, or like ick, it means the female over the male in a gynocentric way. And we all know about what gynocentrism is. It's the male propensity to err on the side of the female, the state's propensity to err on the side of the female. And so when you think about hegemonic in itself, you would say, well, it tends to lean towards the female, the gynocentrism, the female centric, or the gynocentric. So there is probably more hegemonic gynocentrism. I can see that because the state errs on the side of the female, and there's programs and all that. But Simpson's paradox says that, once they do all the mathematics and stuff on there, and the biggest thing, once you do all it will generally go back to a flip-flop on this with Simpson's paradox. You can look at that. I don't want to go into that right now. That's why I give these terms, Simpson's paradox. And I even use Joe's paradox too, because I like... Simps don't like to be called simps and stuff like that, because it all gives term to my thinking. It all gives term to what I'm saying, and it gives fluidity to it. And there's theoretical grounds which these things have come by since 1980. So we look at the words that they're using, and they neolocalized them in 1980. They changed them, and with the ick, and they changed it to something that really doesn't. So you got to start wondering, wow, why would they change the meaning of that to flow to the sort of gynocentric activism? Well, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about gender theory as activism, and the interventions of and examples that we can give on these things. Someone's sending me a message now. Nope, didn't get nothing. Oh my, that's perfect. Yeah, that's a call from, I'll have to call that and take that back. I'm going to decline that right now, since it won't decline. Well, I'm going to throw this over here until I get done here, and then I'm going to have to call that back. So when we look at hegemonic masculinity, we're starting to talk about something that's a little bit ambiguous, and it's more hegemonic it's more hegemonic gynocentricity that we see in in the actual world, rather than the world in the mind of these gender study recipients and everything. Let me stop and say hello, Al Capone. Hello, you. Hello, Riff. Hello, Miss Mgtow Gaming. Hello, Chewy. Hello, Savage. Hello, Joe. Hello, everybody. I always say, when if you want to take on this this battle, this fight, that you want to take on, get into gender dynamics and that sort of stuff. You want to get into the gender dynamics arena. You're going to have to read this stuff. You're going to have to read this stuff well, and you're going to have to know the meanings of it. And that's why I kind of do these things sometimes, so we can get a better explanation of what we're talking about. And that's all I really wanted to talk about today. And we're talking about a set of values here, and it's established men as power, and that's inside the head of the feminists, but they've taken it outside. They've taken it into the political arena. They've taken it into the social economic arena. They've taken it with Me Too. They've taken it into all those arenas. So it gives problem to their original ideas of 1980, 1987, and I think it was Simpson's writing, and Jessica, whatever her name is, I can't remember her name right now, writing in 1987, 1992, and everything, and it starts falling apart. So they have to start rewording this stuff to take it the next step of crazy. And I have something sexy you should look at. So Steel Claymore. And yeah. So hello, everybody. And I just wanted to go over. And what do you think of that? Well, this is the basis of the whole argument, too, that somehow there's this there's this patriarchal force that's our mere presence, our mere masculinity, what we're talking about, sexual dimorphism, our mere sexual dimorphism. When we walk in a room, we're entitled to take over the room, which is funny. It is kind of funny when you think about it, because most men aren't really interested in that. There is force, and there is personality and personality dynamics, and dynamics between people, and people that are able and capable of running things, and there's people that aren't able and capable of running things. I've met a lot of people that stumble, and we have work meetings all the time when I come, and I'm pretty much the same way I am here, and I can get in front of a group, and I can talk for long periods of time, and talk about a subject and explain a subject and everything, and I have that ability kind of to run the thing in a way that would be cohesive. But I've met a lot of people in my life. It doesn't have nothing to do with I think politics and your personality is pretty much it. But basically your ability to take hold of that situation and do well in that situation. We hear a lot of people talk about it all the time. I can't speak in public. Speaking in public turns me on. I love it. I used to do it a lot when I was younger, and before the fire, and and before the fire and a little after the fire, but it's not something that everybody can do. But it's nothing that's based on a general gender rules that say women can't do this. No, that was never true. No one's ever said that women can't politically speak in front of people and try to sway the influence of a voter. That's generally not true, but that's what we're talking about when we talk about hegemonic masculinity. We've seen debates, and we've seen some women they excel at that, and it basically comes down to merit, where if you're good at this, then you'll excel. You can become that. No one's holding you back. There are no hidden barriers, but that's what we're talking about when we talk about these things. There's some magic hitting barrier in there that nobody can see. And I explained the definition of hegemony, and I explained the definition of the ick at the end of it. And I explained all that. There's a magic hidden barrier, and that's what it's called. This ambiguous term that somebody made up in 1980 and never existed before that, in the way and shape of the ick that we were talking about, the form of the idea. And so now there's magic dragons out there that are putting, and we start thinking about, oh, what our view of feminism. And I don't believe in feminism, but we start looking at, I look at it from both the views and everything, and their view of masculinity. And there's some magic dragon out there, and it's got this power, this magic power, and that's where whiskey was kind of going to today. The magic power of hegemonic masculinity. I have that, but women don't have that because I'm male and I was born with that. Well, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. That's when you're shooting at dragons. That's when you're fencing with the windmills. I always use fencing with windmills because of Don Quixote. He thought the windmill was a dragon, and he was like, oh yeah, come on, my trusted enslaved boy, and we'll go fence with these dragons. That's what the guy was. He rode with his trusted enslaved boy, and he was doing it all for why was Don Quixote doing that? He was doing that for the love of a woman. Very young woman. Don Quixote was getting older, and he didn't understand it. There's no way she's gonna like you. So he was simping. He was white knighting. He was like, yes, she will. I will win her heart by slaying a dragon. And that's gynocentrism in there. And that's what men do. This is the typical example when you start fighting with some magic dragon out there that doesn't really exist. And I think that's for both genders here, because we can see what I'm talking about today with that word hegemonic. And there's some magic dragon out there, a patriarchy. And the last time I looked for my coupons, I haven't got no coupons in the mail, and then I don't have this pool in the backyard that's full with money, and I'm like Scrooge McDuck swimming in it because I'm patriarchal. It's like, and I get these benefits, and wow, cool. I was born a man. That doesn't happen. Everybody's got to work for what they get. There is no favor that outside of the state. And the only favor that is given under gynocentrism is the propensity to give women a gun in the room to pull the trigger anytime they want, so we can cause poverty levels to go up and divorce levels. Now, if you look at the divorce levels, 1974, 1960 today, it's all going up. You start looking at lately, the marriage levels are going down, and the idiots can't put that together in their head. Why these two things are happening. They're like, marriage and divorce are two different things. No, they're not. They're the same thing. That the one thing that comes from the I'm getting blown up, and I know what that is right now. So that's all I really wanted to talk about today. And I'm going to make this short because that's probably an important phone call, and I got to take it and call it back today, and that's sometime. But that's what I wanted to talk about from my last video, that I kind of went short on that in my mind. And with that, all you guys, I want to say thanks a lot for showing up, and sorry about the interruptions, and I have to do this thing now. And I'll talk to you all, and most of all, thanks a lot for being Mgtow.